He had always been a man of routine. Every day was planned carefully, meetings, calls, and the endless flow of work that kept him busy from morning till evening. He rarely came home before 7. But today was different. Today, for no particular reason, he decided to return home a little earlier than usual. The streets were quieter than usual as he drove. The afternoon sun spilled across the neighborhood, casting long shadows that seemed to stretch toward the houses. He noticed little things he normally ignored: the chirping of birds, the smell of fresh bread from the bakery on the corner, the distant laughter of children playing. There was something peaceful in the quietness that made him feel lighter, almost like he had stepped into a different world for a moment. When he reached his house, he noticed something odd. The front door was slightly ajar. He frowned. He always made sure it was locked when he left, and the maid was usually meticulous about keeping everything in order. He stepped inside carefully, calling out her name, but there was no response. Only silence. The air inside was warm, carrying a faint smell of tea and polish, the usual signs that the house was being taken care of. But still, she was nowhere to be seen. He walked into the living room, expecting to find her dusting the shelves or arranging the cushions as she always did. But the room was empty. His eyes scanned the space, noting how everything looked perfectly in place. Even the sunlight streaming through the window seemed to fall neatly over the furniture, as if the house itself were waiting for something. There was a strange calmness, but it also made him feel slightly uneasy. Then he heard it, a soft, almost rhythmic sound. It wasn't the usual clatter of cleaning tools or the shuffle of footsteps. It was something delicate, something he couldn't quite place at first. He paused, tilting his head, listening carefully. The sound grew clearer as he moved closer. It was coming from the study at the far end of the house. Curiosity took over. He walked slowly, each step cautious, as if afraid to disturb whatever was happening. As he approached the doorway, he finally saw her. She was there, crouched in front of the wall, her hands moving with incredible precision. The sight made him stop dead in his tracks. She wasn't cleaning. She was painting, but not just any painting. Her strokes were confident, flowing, almost magical. The colors she used were vivid, yet perfectly balanced. The image she was creating seemed to have a life of its own, glowing softly under the afternoon sunlight. Every detail, every line, seemed intentional and beautiful. He had never seen anything like it. He stood there, unsure of what to do. Part of him wanted to call out, to speak, but another part was frozen, mesmerized by what he was witnessing. All these years he had known her as a quiet, humble woman who kept the house in order, who served meals and did her work without complaint. And now, here she was, revealing a part of herself he had never imagined existed. For a few moments, he just watched. The sound of the brush on the wall was almost hypnotic, like a soft melody that filled the room. She worked with such focus and passion that she didn't notice him standing there. The ordinary maid he had seen every day had transformed into an artist. Completely absorbed in her creation, he felt a strange mix of emotions: surprise, admiration, and something else, a quiet shame. How could he have been so blind all these years? She had been right in front of him, yet he had never known about her hidden world. It was humbling to realize that someone so close could have such a profound depth he had never noticed. The room was filled with a serene energy, something he had never experienced in his home before. It wasn't just the beauty of the painting that struck him. It was the dedication, the love, and the quiet joy she poured into her work. For a moment, the world outside ceased to exist. The noise, the stress, the endless responsibilities, none of it mattered. All that mattered was the simple, powerful act of creation happening right before him. He wanted to speak, to ask her about it, but he didn't want to disturb the magic of the moment. Instead, he simply stood there, letting himself absorb every detail, every color, every movement of her hands. He realized that he was witnessing something rare, something personal that she had never shared with anyone. And somehow, being there, seeing it all, made him feel privileged. Even if he didn't yet understand why. As the minutes passed, he noticed the faint smile on her face as she added tiny finishing touches. It was subtle, but it told him more than words ever could. She was happy. She was fulfilled in a way that went beyond any job or routine task. And at that moment, he realized something profound. People are full of hidden talents and passions, layers of life that are often invisible until the right moment reveals them. He didn't interrupt her. He didn't even breathe too loudly. He just watched, feeling a mix of awe and quiet respect. What he thought would be a normal, uneventful afternoon had turned into something extraordinary. And deep down, he knew that this simple, unexpected moment would stay with him forever. Little did he know that this was only the beginning. What he was about to discover would not just surprise him, it would change the way he saw her, and maybe even the way he saw the world around him. He couldn't take his eyes off her. The way she moved, the way her hands danced across the wall, it was mesmerizing. He had never seen anyone so focused, so completely lost in what they were doing. It wasn't just a painting. It was a world coming to life under her hands. A world he had never imagined existed in his own house. The more he watched, the more he realized how much effort and dedication she must have put into this. Every brushstroke seemed carefully thought out, yet flowing naturally, as if her hands were guided by something beyond conscious control. He wondered how many times she had practiced this in secret, how many hours she had spent perfecting something she never intended anyone to see. He slowly stepped closer, trying to get a better look. The painting was incredible. It was vibrant, full of color and emotion. The shapes seemed to move, telling a story that words could never capture. He could see the care in every line, the patience in every stroke, and a passion that radiated from the wall itself. It was hard to believe that the same woman who quietly cleaned his house every day could create something so extraordinary that she worked in silence, completely absorbed. Her eyes were focused, her lips slightly pursed, and her body leaned forward as if every part of her was connected to the painting. He felt like an intruder in a sacred space, but at the same time he couldn't look away. He had always thought of her as simple, ordinary, almost invisible in her quiet dedication to her duties. Now he realized he had been completely wrong. For the first time, he noticed the small details around her that he had never paid attention to. The way her fingers were stained with paint, the faint smudge on her apron, the careful way she cleaned her brush and set it down between strokes. These small actions showed not just talent but discipline, care, and a love for what she was doing. He felt a growing admiration, mixed with a kind of guilt. How could he have overlooked all this? How could he have missed the depth of a person he saw every day? He tried to imagine how long she had been hiding this side of herself. Every time she worked, she must have felt a mixture of excitement and fear, excited to create, afraid that someone might judge her or take her talent for granted. And now, here she was, in front of him, showing a part of herself she had never shared. He felt honored but also humbled. It was a rare thing to witness someone's secret passion in such a pure and personal form. The sound of the brush on the wall was gentle but steady, almost musical. It created a rhythm that filled the room, quiet yet powerful. He realized that this rhythm was more than just the sound of painting. It was the rhythm of her heart, her soul expressing itself in colors and shapes. He could see the joy in her eyes, the satisfaction in her movements, and he understood that this was more than a hobby. This was a piece of her, something she had poured her time, energy, and dreams into. As he watched, he noticed something else. The painting wasn't just beautiful, it told a story. There was a scene, almost like a memory captured on the wall. It was full of life and emotion, scenes that seemed to reflect her experiences, her feelings, her dreams. He realized that for years she had been living a secret life, one that no one knew about. And suddenly, it hit him. He had been so focused on his own busy life that he had completely missed the richness of hers. He couldn't help but think about all the times he had passed her in the hallway, barely noticing her presence. All the times he had taken her work for granted, thinking of it as just part of the house running smoothly. And now, seeing her like this, he felt a deep sense of regret. How many hidden treasures had he overlooked in people around him simply because he wasn't paying attention? For a moment, he simply stood there, absorbing everything. He didn't move. He didn't speak. He didn't want to break the spell. It felt like time had slowed down, like the rest of the world had disappeared. leaving just the two of them in this quiet, magical moment. He realized that this was not just about talent, it was about courage. She had the courage to express herself in a world that might never have understood her. And she had done it quietly, patiently, without asking for recognition. The more he watched, the more he felt a connection. Not just to her talent, but to her as a person. He saw her dedication, her humility, her quiet strength. It was humbling to witness someone who could be so extraordinary and yet so unassuming. And it made him reflect on his own life. How often had he rushed through his days, focused only on work and responsibilities, missing the beauty and the people around him? He realized that what he was witnessing was a rare gift. Not everyone gets to see the hidden depths of another person. Not everyone gets to witness passion and talent in its purest form. And right now, he was seeing it all unfold in front of him. In his own home, from someone he had known for years but never truly seen. As she added the final touches to the painting, he noticed the subtle satisfaction in her posture, the quiet pride in her expression. She was completely immersed in her creation, and yet there was a calm, gentle confidence about her. She wasn't performing for anyone. She wasn't seeking approval. She was simply being herself, and that authenticity made the moment even more powerful. He wanted to say something, to tell her how incredible this was, how shocked and amazed he felt. But the words seemed inadequate. How could he explain the mix of awe, respect, and wonder that filled him? How could he capture the feeling of seeing someone's secret world come alive, of realizing that there is so much more to people than meets the eye? So he stayed silent. He simply watched, letting the moment sink in, letting himself be present in the quiet magic of her creation. And in that silence he felt something change inside him. A door had opened, a door to understanding, to appreciation, to seeing people for who they truly are, not just for the roles they play or the tasks they perform. By the time she finally stepped back to admire her work, he was still standing there, completely absorbed. She looked at him, and for the first time he saw a mixture of surprise and calm in her eyes. She had expected him to be elsewhere, perhaps to arrive later like always. And now that he was here watching her, he didn't know how she would react. But instead of fear, she simply smiled. A small, humble smile that said more than words ever could. And in that moment, he understood something important. This painting, this secret talent, was not just art, it was a part of her. A part of her life that she had nurtured quietly, without expectation or recognition. And witnessing it was a gift, a rare, beautiful gift that he would never forget. He finally spoke, though his voice was soft, almost hesitant. This is incredible," he said, his eyes fixed on the painting. She had stepped back, brushing her hands on her apron, revealing the full scope of her work. The colors, the details, the life within the image, it was beyond anything he had imagined. He couldn't stop staring. For a moment she simply looked at him, calm and unflustered. It was as if she had known he would see it someday, but she had waited for the right moment. Then she gave a small, humble smile and nodded, as if acknowledging his words without needing praise. "Thank you," she said quietly. I've always loved painting, but I never thought anyone would care to see it." He was taken aback. How could someone so talented remain unnoticed for so long? He thought about all the years she had worked in his house, always present but invisible in his routine. Every day she had shown her dedication and care in small, ordinary ways, never revealing this incredible depth within herself. Now he realized that what he had taken for granted was actually extraordinary. She walked closer to the wall, gesturing at certain details. These scenes are from things I've seen, places I've imagined, memories I've held on to," she explained. "I've painted in secret, mostly at night, when the house was quiet and no one was around. I never wanted attention. I just wanted to create." He listened, completely absorbed. He could see the sincerity in her eyes, the quiet passion in her voice. It wasn't about fame, recognition, or reward. It was about expression, about giving life to something that existed only in her mind. He realized that she had found a way to be fully herself, even in a life that often demanded her to be just a helper, a background presence. For the first time, He noticed the courage it must have taken for her to pursue this passion in secret. Every day she had to manage her duties, meet expectations, and remain humble, all while nurturing a hidden part of herself. He felt a wave of admiration mixed with shame. How had he never imagined that someone so quiet could possess such strength and talent? He stepped closer to the painting, running his fingers along the edge carefully, as if touching it could somehow bring him closer to understanding her world. Every stroke, every shade, every layer revealed her skill and her dedication. He could feel the hours she must have spent planning, imagining, and perfecting each part. This was not something done casually. It was the work of someone who lived and breathed her art. She noticed him looking closely, and she smiled again, this time a little more openly. "I've wanted to show someone, just once," she said. "But I wasn't sure who would understand, and I was afraid of being judged." He shook his head, feeling the weight of those words. Judged? After everything he had just seen? How could anyone judge this? It was breathtaking, honest, and full of life. He realized that her fear had kept her hidden, and yet she had still found a way to bring her vision into reality. That courage, that determination, touched him deeply. He tried to find the words to respond, but they felt inadequate. How could he explain the mix of shock, admiration, and humility that filled him? How could he express the realization that he had been living with someone extraordinary for years without ever truly seeing her? Instead, he simply said, "I can't believe I never knew. This is amazing. You are amazing." Her eyes softened and she looked at him with a quiet, steady gaze. "I didn't need anyone to notice. I wanted to do this for myself. It's a part of me, a part I couldn't keep inside anymore. I wasn't sure if anyone would care or if they would even understand." He nodded, realizing that he did understand, even if he had never imagined it. He felt a connection, not just to her talent, but to her as a person. He saw her strength, her vulnerability, her courage, and her quiet determination. And he felt a growing sense of responsibility. He could no longer be blind to her gifts. He had to honor them, to support her, to give her the recognition she deserved. For a few minutes, they simply stood there in silence. He looked at the painting again, taking in every detail while she watched him watch it. The room was quiet, except for the faint sound of her breathing and the soft light falling on the wall. It was a moment suspended in time, a moment of revelation, of understanding, of connection. Finally, he spoke again. "I want to help you," he said. "I don't know how, but I want people to see this." "You shouldn't have to hide something so incredible." She shook her head gently, smiling. "I don't need help. I needed someone to see it, even once. That's enough for me." He realized that what she had created wasn't just a painting. It was a testament to patience, resilience, and inner strength. It was a story of someone who had lived quietly, worked diligently, and nurtured a hidden passion without asking for anything in return. And now he had the privilege of witnessing it firsthand. He looked at her. And for the first time, he truly saw her not just as the maid who worked in his house, but as a person with depth, talent, and dreams. He understood that he had been blind to so many layers of life that existed around him, and that sometimes the most extraordinary things were hidden in the most ordinary places. The more he thought about it, the more he realized that this moment was changing him. It wasn't just about seeing her talent, it was about learning to notice, to appreciate, to recognize the people around him for who they really were. It was a lesson in humility, in empathy, and in the quiet power of human passion. She finally stepped closer to him, brushing her hands together. "I'm glad you came home early today," she said softly. "Otherwise, you might never have known." He smiled, feeling a warmth in his chest that he hadn't felt in years. "Neither would I," he admitted. "Neither would I." And in that simple exchange, something shifted. A door had opened, not just to her hidden world, but to a new way of seeing the world around him. He realized that life was full of secrets, talents, and passions that often went unnoticed. But when they were revealed, they had the power to transform everything: the way we see others, the way we see ourselves, and the way we experience the world. For the first time, he felt a deep sense of gratitude. gratitude for her courage, her talent, and the quiet way she had touched his life. He understood that some moments were rare, precious, and life-changing. And this was one of them, a moment he would carry with him forever. A moment when the ordinary became extraordinary, and when a hidden talent illuminated not just a wall, but his own understanding of the people around him. He sat quietly in the living room after she had finished her painting, letting the moment sink in. The room was calm, filled with a soft, golden light from the late afternoon sun. He kept looking at the wall, at the painting, at the colors and the life within it, and he felt a strange mix of emotions. Amazement, surprise, admiration, and even a little guilt all wrapped together. He realized that he had underestimated her, that he had overlooked the richness of someone he had lived with for years. For a long time he just sat there thinking. He thought about all the times he had hurried through his day, too busy with work, meetings, and calls to notice the people around him. How many things had he missed simply because he never looked closely enough? And now, seeing her hidden talent, he understood that there was a whole world in front of him he had never seen, a world that existed quietly, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. He got up and walked slowly toward the painting, noticing every detail. Each stroke, each color, each subtle shadow, it was all intentional, all carefully placed. He could feel the effort and the patience it must have taken to bring this work to life. And yet she had done it quietly, without expectation, without any audience for years. The thought made him reflect on how often he had overlooked dedication and passion in ordinary moments. In ordinary people, he thought about her life, about the hours she must have spent quietly at night, nurturing this hidden talent. Every day she had fulfilled her duties, cleaned the house, cooked meals, and yet she had carried this secret world with her, a world full of creativity, imagination, and love. It amazed him how much strength it took to live two lives at once, one visible, ordinary life, and one hidden, extraordinary life. As he reflected, he realized that this was a lesson for him, too. Life wasn't just about routines, responsibilities, or accomplishments. Life was about noticing, appreciating, and understanding the people around him. It was about seeing them fully, not just as they appeared, but as they truly were. He had taken her for granted, thinking of her as just a maid, just someone who kept his house in order. And now he understood how wrong he had been. He remembered moments that had seemed ordinary before. The way she quietly prepared meals, the care she took in cleaning the house, the small smiles she shared. He wondered if those moments had hidden hints of her creativity, signs of the depth he had failed to notice. And he felt a pang of regret that he hadn't been more observant, that he hadn't recognized her talent sooner. He walked back to the sofa and sat down, thinking deeply. He realized that talent, passion, and strength were not always loud or visible. Sometimes they were quiet, hidden in the background, waiting for the right time to emerge. And sometimes the most extraordinary things were found in ordinary people, in places where no one expected to see them. This thought filled him with both awe and humility. He turned his attention back to her. She was standing quietly nearby, watching him watch the painting, her expression calm and unassuming. She didn't seek praise. She didn't ask for recognition. She had created this work simply because it was a part of who she was. And in that simplicity, he felt a profound respect for her. She had not only shared her talent, but also taught him a lesson about humility, patience, and quiet courage. He stood up and approached her gently. "I've been thinking," he said slowly, "all these years, I never realized how much talent, passion, and strength can exist quietly in someone's life. I took you for granted, and I'm ashamed I didn't notice sooner." She smiled softly, and for the first time he saw not just her humility but also her resilience. She had kept going, creating in secret, not for recognition but for herself. And that made her even more remarkable. He realized that his perspective on life had shifted. Seeing her hidden world had changed the way he understood people, the way he understood effort, dedication, and love. It was a reminder that there was more to life than what met the eye, that everyone carried hidden stories, hidden talents, and hidden dreams. And he knew he would never forget this lesson. For hours, they talked quietly, sharing thoughts and reflections. She told him about the inspirations behind her painting, the memories she had captured, and the emotions she had poured into it. He listened intently, asking questions, trying to understand the depth of her journey. The conversation was simple, yet profound, a connection forming that went beyond roles, titles, or social positions. He realized that she had been giving him more than just a painting. She had been showing him a new way to see the world. She had reminded him that life was full of hidden beauty, that ordinary moments could hold extraordinary meaning, and that patience and quiet dedication were powerful in ways he had never imagined. As the evening approached, the room took on a soft, warm glow. He felt a sense of peace he hadn't experienced in years. The stress of his work, the pressures of deadlines, the endless to-do lists, all of it seemed small compared to the richness of what he had witnessed today. He understood that the true value of life was not in what one accomplished outwardly, but in the depth of connection, creativity, and courage within oneself and others. He finally spoke again, softly but firmly. "I want to make sure your work doesn't stay hidden anymore," he said. "You have something incredible here, something people need to see. I want to help if you'll let me." She shook her head gently, a calm smile on her face. "I don't need anyone to show it," she replied. "I create because I need to, because it's part of who I am. That's enough for me, but thank you for seeing it. That means more than words can say." He nodded, realizing that she had already achieved something far greater than recognition. She had nurtured her passion, remained true to herself, and shared her world with him, a world he might never have discovered if he hadn't come home early that day. And he felt grateful not just for the painting, but for the lesson it brought, for the reminder to look closer, to notice more, and to value people for who they truly are. He spent the rest of the evening reflecting, moving through the house, noticing small details he had ignored for years, the way the sunlight fell on the floors, the little decorations she had arranged, the care she had put into every corner. Every detail now seemed more meaningful, connected, alive. He realized that life was full of these hidden gems, moments and talents waiting to be discovered, and he vowed to see them, to notice them, to appreciate them from now on. By the time night fell, he understood something important. This day, this unexpected discovery had changed him. It had taught him humility, patience, and the quiet power of hidden talent. It had reminded him that extraordinary things often exist in ordinary places, and that sometimes the most remarkable people are the ones we see every day but never truly notice. And as he prepared for bed that night, he felt a quiet sense of hope and inspiration. He knew that life was richer, more colorful, and more meaningful than he had realized. All it took was a moment of attention, a willingness to see, and the courage of someone to share their hidden world. The next morning he woke up with a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in years. The memory of the painting and the quiet courage she had shown lingered in his mind. He thought about the lessons he had learned, the importance of noticing the people around him, of valuing hidden talents, and of appreciating the depth of ordinary lives. And now, he knew he wanted to do something to honor her gift, to help her share her talent, while still respecting her humble, quiet nature. He found her in the kitchen, preparing breakfast as she always did. She moved with her usual grace and calmness, completely unaware of how much her world had already transformed. He paused, watching her for a moment, feeling a quiet admiration that ran deeper than words could express. She had changed the way he saw life, and now it was his turn to show that he valued her in return. "I've been thinking," he said softly, careful not to startle her, "that maybe it's time for your work to be seen by others. Not because you need it, but because it's incredible and it deserves attention." She looked up, surprised but calm. "I've never wanted recognition," she replied. "I paint because it's a part of me." "That's enough," he nodded, understanding. "I know, but sometimes sharing your gift can inspire others, and it doesn't have to take away from who you are. It can even make your world bigger without changing what makes it yours." She considered his words for a moment, then gave a small, thoughtful smile. "Maybe," she said quietly, "but only if it feels right. Only if it doesn't change the joy I get from painting." He smiled back. "I promise it won't. I just want to help you open a door, not push you through it." Over the next few weeks, he helped her in quiet, thoughtful ways. He reached out to people who could showcase her work, but he did it in a way that respected her privacy and humility. He arranged a small, private exhibition with a few trusted friends and local art lovers. Nothing extravagant, no pressure, just a gentle introduction to the world outside the walls of her home. The day of the exhibition arrived. She was nervous, a side of her he had never seen before. Normally calm and composed, her hands trembled slightly, and her eyes darted around the room. But he stayed by her side, offering quiet encouragement. "Just be yourself," he said. "That's enough." When the guests arrived and saw her paintings, there was an immediate silence. People were stunned by the depth, the emotion, and the skill in her work. Each piece told a story, full of life and imagination. She had captured not just scenes, but feelings, memories, and dreams. For the first time, she realized that her secret world could touch other people, that her gift could inspire and move those who witnessed it. As the exhibition continued, he watched her closely. She began to relax, noticing the smiles, the nods of approval, and the quiet admiration in the eyes of the visitors. She realized that people were seeing her for who she truly was, not just as a maid, not just as someone who kept a house in order, but as an artist, a creator, a person of depth and vision. And in that moment, she felt a pride that wasn't about recognition or fame. It was about being truly seen and understood. He felt a deep sense of satisfaction as well. Not because of the recognition she received, but because he had witnessed her transformation, her courage, and her quiet emergence into a world that had been waiting for her all along. He realized that supporting someone's talent wasn't about controlling it or taking credit. It was about noticing, encouraging, and creating opportunities for them to flourish on their own terms. After the exhibition, they walked home together in silence. The streets were quiet, the afternoon sun warm on their faces. He noticed the subtle changes in her posture, the small, confident smile that had replaced the nervousness he had seen earlier. She carried herself differently now, not because anything had changed about her, but because she had been recognized in a way that mattered. He reflected on how much this experience had changed him. He had learned to see the extraordinary in the ordinary, to appreciate the hidden depth of people, and to recognize that everyone carries untold stories, talents, and dreams. It had been a powerful lesson in humility, empathy, and awareness. In the weeks and months that followed, she continued to paint more freely and confidently than ever. The exhibition had opened doors, but she never let it change the essence of why she created. She painted for herself, for the joy it brought, and for the quiet satisfaction of expressing the hidden worlds inside her. And he remained her steadfast supporter, someone who had learned the value of noticing, appreciating, and nurturing the extraordinary in everyday life. Their relationship transformed as well. There was a new sense of respect and understanding between them. He no longer saw her as merely a helper in his household. He saw her as a person of immense talent, courage, and depth. And she saw him as someone who had learned to truly see, to appreciate, and to honor the hidden gifts in the people around him. One afternoon, as they looked at one of her new paintings together, he said quietly, "You've taught me more than I could have imagined. Not just about art, but about life and about noticing the beauty that's often hidden in plain sight." She smiled softly. "And you've reminded me that sometimes sharing a part of yourself with the right person can change everything. Thank you for seeing me." He realized that this experience had left a lasting mark on both of them. It had changed their perspectives, deepened their bond, and opened a world that had previously existed only in quiet imagination. And it reminded him that extraordinary things often exist in the most ordinary places, waiting for someone to notice them. From that day forward, their lives were no longer the same. She painted with freedom, joy, and quiet confidence. And he moved through life with a new awareness, seeing the hidden talents, passions, and dreams in everyone he met. They had both grown, changed, and learned that sometimes a small moment like coming home a little earlier than usual could reveal a world of possibilities. A world that had always been there, waiting to be discovered. The house, once ordinary and quiet, now felt alive in a new way. It wasn't just the paintings on the walls, it was the recognition of human potential, The understanding that everyone has a story, a gift, or a talent that can transform lives if given the chance. And they both carried that understanding with them, quietly, humbly, but forever changed. In the end, it was more than a story about hidden talent. It was a story about seeing, understanding, and valuing the people around us. It was a story about courage, patience, and the quiet power of dedication. And it was a story about how one simple moment, the decision to come home early, could change everything.